The sun was just beginning to rise over London, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. It was a special day, not just for the royal family, but for everyone in the country. People had been waiting for this moment for years, and now it was finally here. Inside Buckingham Palace, the air buzzed with excitement and nerves. Everyone moved quietly yet quickly, making sure every detail was perfect for the big event. Prince William stood near the window in one of the palace's grand rooms. He looked out at the empty streets below, knowing that soon they would be filled with cheering crowds. His heart felt heavy, but also full of pride. This was not just any day. It was the coronation, a moment that marked the start of a new chapter for him and his family. He thought about his grandmother, who had ruled for so many years, and how much she had taught him about duty and responsibility. But today wasn't just about remembering the past. It was also about looking ahead. William took a deep breath and turned away from the window. He knew this was his chance to show the world what kind of king he wanted to be. A king who cared deeply about his people and worked hard to bring them together. In another part of the palace, Kate was busy helping their children get ready. She knelt down beside Prince George, adjusting his tie and smoothing out his jacket. "You look so handsome," she said with a warm smile. George grinned back at her, though he still seemed a little unsure about all the attention. Next to him, Princess Charlotte fidgeted with her dress, tugging at the sleeves. "It's too tight, Mama," she complained softly. Kate chuckled and gently fixed it for her. Prince Louis, the youngest, sat on the floor playing with the small toy soldier. He didn't fully understand why everyone was so busy or why there were so many cameras outside. All he knew was that something important was happening, and he wanted to enjoy every bit of it. When Kate called him over, he ran to her, giggling as she gave him a quick hug. "Are you ready?" she asked him. He nodded enthusiastically, his eyes wide with curiosity. As the family gathered in the hallway, there was a brief moment of silence. They all looked at each other, feeling the weight of the day ahead. For William, it was a mix of emotions, pride, nervousness, and even sadness. He couldn't help but think about his mother, Princess Diana, who should have been there to see this moment. Her absence was a quiet ache in his heart, but he reminded himself that she would always be with him in spirit. Kate noticed the faraway look in his eyes and reached out to hold his hand. "We're all here with you," she whispered. Her words were simple, but they carried so much meaning. William squeezed her hand tightly, grateful for her support. Together, they made a strong team, and he knew they could handle anything that came their way. Outside, the streets were slowly coming alive. People had started gathering hours ago, some even camping overnight to secure a good spot. Flags fluttered in the breeze, and banners with messages of hope and unity hung from lampposts. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, pointing excitedly at the palace gates. Older folks leaned against railings, sharing stories of coronations they had seen decades ago. The atmosphere was electric, a blend of joy, anticipation, and nostalgia. For many, this day was more than just a ceremony. It represented continuity, a connection between the past, present, and future. As the crowd grew larger, conversations echoed through the streets. Some talked about how proud they felt to witness history, while others shared dreams for what the new era might bring. A young girl held up a handmade sign that read, "Welcome to your new journey." Her enthusiasm brought smiles to those around her. Back inside the palace, the sound of horses' hooves signaled that the carriages were ready. The royal family stepped outside, greeted by the crisp morning air. The carriage gleamed under the sunlight, its gold trim catching every ray. It was a symbol of tradition, carrying with it centuries of history. As William helped his family climb into the carriage, he paused for a moment to take it all in. The sight of the massive crowd stretching as far as the eye could see was overwhelming. Thousands of faces looked up at him, full of hope and admiration. He felt a surge of gratitude for his family, for his country, and for the opportunity to serve. Once everyone was settled, the carriage began its slow journey toward Westminster Abbey. The wheels rolled smoothly over the cobblestone streets, accompanied by the rhythmic clatter of horses' hooves. Inside, the children pressed their faces against the windows, marveling at the sea of people lining the route. "Look, Mama, there are so many!" Charlotte exclaimed, her voice filled with wonder. Even George, usually reserved, couldn't hide his excitement as he waved shyly at the crowd. The procession moved steadily forward, passing landmarks that told the story of Britain's rich history. Each street corner seemed to echo with memories of coronations past, yet today felt different. There was a sense of renewal in the air, a promise that the monarchy was evolving to meet the needs of modern times. For William, this ride was more than just a ceremonial tradition. It was a reminder of the bond between the royal family and the people. He glanced at Kate, who was smiling warmly at the crowd, and then at his children, whose laughter filled the carriage. In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just his journey, it was theirs too. Together, they were stepping into a new era, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as the carriage approached Westminster Abbey, the bells began to ring, filling the air with music. It was a sound that carried both celebration and solemnity, marking the beginning of a day that would be remembered for generations to come. The royal carriage rolled slowly out of Buckingham Palace, its polished wood and gold trim gleaming under the morning sun. The sound of hooves clattering against the cobblestones echoed through the streets, announcing the start of a journey that would soon become part of history. Inside the carriage, Prince William, Kate, and their children sat together, each feeling the weight of the moment in their own way. Prince William looked out the window, his eyes scanning the massive crowd gathered along the route. Thousands of people lined the streets, waving flags, holding signs, and cheering loudly. Some had been waiting since dawn just to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Their excitement was contagious, but William couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and nervousness. This wasn't just any ride. It was a symbolic journey toward a new chapter for him, his family, and the entire country. He glanced down at his hands, which rested on his lap. They were steady, but inside, he felt anything but calm. He thought about all the kings and queens who had traveled this same path before him. What must they have felt? Did they feel the same pressure, the same sense of responsibility? For a brief moment, he closed his eyes and imagined his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth I, sitting in this very carriage years ago. Her strength and grace had inspired so many, including him. He silently vowed to honor her legacy by being the best king he could be. Beside him, Kate noticed the distant look on his face. She reached over and gently placed her hand on his. "We're doing this together," she whispered softly, her voice full of reassurance. William turned to her and smiled. Her presence always made him feel stronger, more grounded. She had been by his side through every challenge, and today was no different. Together, they were ready to take on whatever lay ahead. In the corner of the carriage, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis sat close to each other, their faces pressed against the windows as they marveled at the scene outside. The crowd seemed endless, stretching farther than they could see. People of all ages waved enthusiastically, some even shouting their names. "Look, Mama!" Charlotte exclaimed, pointing at a group of children holding balloons shaped like crowns. "They're waving at us." George, who was usually serious and reserved, couldn't resist cracking a small smile. He waved shyly at the crowd, his hand moving back and forth awkwardly. It was clear he wasn't used to being the center of attention, but he tried his best to respond to the warmth coming from the people outside. Louis, on the other hand, was completely fascinated by everything around him. He pointed excitedly at the horses pulling the carriage, laughing whenever one of them flicked its tail. Kate leaned forward to adjust Louis's jacket, tucking it neatly around his shoulders. "Stay close, sweetheart," she said with a gentle smile. Despite the noise and excitement outside, she wanted to make sure her children felt safe and comfortable. This was a big day for them too, though they might not fully understand its significance yet. Still, she hoped this experience would leave a lasting impression, a memory they could cherish forever. As the carriage moved through the streets of London, the narrator highlighted the beauty of the city itself. Ancient buildings stood tall beside modern skyscrapers, blending old traditions with new ideas. Every street corner seemed to tell a story, whether it was the Tower of London rising majestically in the distance or the bustling markets where vendors sold souvenirs to tourists. Even the weather seemed to cooperate. The morning mist had cleared away, leaving behind a bright, sunny day perfect for such an occasion. For William, these familiar sights carried extra meaning today. He thought about how much London had changed over the years, and how much it had stayed the same. The city had faced challenges, from wars to pandemics, but it had always found a way to come back stronger. That resilience was something he admired deeply, and it gave him hope for the future. As king, he wanted to embody that same spirit, to lead with courage and compassion, just as his ancestors had done. The crowd grew louder as the procession approached Westminster Abbey. People cheered, clapped, and sang patriotic songs, their voices rising above the sound of the horses' hooves. Some held up handmade signs with messages like, "God save the King," and "Welcome to your new journey." Others simply stood quietly, tears streaming down their faces as they watched the royal family pass by. It was a moment that brought everyone together, rich or poor, young or old, Everyone shared a common bond of hope and unity. Inside the carriage, the children began to notice the growing excitement outside. "Why are they so happy, Papa?" Louis asked innocently, his wide eyes filled with curiosity. William chuckled and ruffled his son's hair affectionately. "Because they believe in us," he replied. "They trust that we will do our best to take care of them and make things better." Charlotte tilted her head, thinking about what her father had said. "Does that mean we have to work really hard?" she asked. Kate nodded, smiling warmly at her daughter. "Yes, sweetheart. Being part of the royal family means working hard and helping others. But don't worry, we'll do it together." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as the children started asking questions about the coronation itself. George wondered if there would be fireworks later, while Charlotte dreamed aloud about seeing a real-life crown up close. Louis, ever the curious one, wanted to know if the Abbey had secret rooms. Their playful chatter brought a sense of normalcy to the otherwise grand occasion, reminding everyone that at the heart of it all, this was still a family embarking on a new adventure. Finally, the carriage arrived at the gates of Westminster Abbey. The ancient building loomed ahead, its towering spires reaching toward the sky. It was a place steeped in history, having witnessed countless coronations, weddings, and funerals over the centuries. Today, it would once again play host to a historic event, one that would mark the beginning of a new era. As the royal family stepped out of the carriage, they were greeted by the sound of bells ringing throughout the abbey. The melody was both joyful and solemn, setting the tone for the ceremony to come. William took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze brush against his face. He looked around at the sea of faces watching him, some smiling, some crying, all united in this shared moment. Kate stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "We've got this," she whispered, her voice steady and confident. William nodded, drawing strength from her words. Together, they turned toward the abbey, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Behind them, the children followed closely, their small hands clasped tightly in their parents'. Though they didn't fully grasp the importance of the day, they could feel the love and support radiating from the crowd. It was a reminder that no matter what challenges came their way, they would always have each other and the people of their country to lean on. And so, with hearts full of hope and determination, the royal family walked into Westminster Abbey, stepping into a new chapter of history. The grand doors of Westminster Abbey stood open, welcoming the royal family into its ancient halls. As Prince William, Kate, and their children stepped inside, they were immediately struck by the beauty and solemnity of the space. The abbey was unlike anything they had ever seen before. Its towering ceilings seemed to touch the sky, and colorful stained glass windows cast soft, shimmering light across the stone floor. It felt like stepping into another world, one where time stood still. William paused for a moment, taking it all in. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt oddly at peace. This place wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of everything the monarchy represented: tradition, faith, and unity. For centuries, kings and queens had walked these same halls, each leaving behind their own mark on history. Now it was his turn to add his chapter to the story. Kate gently touched his arm, bringing him back to the present. "It's beautiful," she said softly, her voice filled with awe. William nodded, unable to find words to describe what he was feeling. Together, they led their children further into the abbey, their footsteps echoing softly against the cold stone floor. Inside, the atmosphere was calm yet electric. Dignitaries, world leaders, and representatives from all walks of life sat quietly in rows, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Some whispered to each other, while others sat silently, lost in thought. Everyone knew how important this day was, not just for the royal family, but for the entire nation. It was a chance to celebrate the past while looking forward to the future. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis walked carefully beside their parents, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen anything like this before. The abbey seemed impossibly large, and every corner held something new to discover. Charlotte pointed excitedly at a statue of an angel carved into one of the walls. "Look, Mama, is that a real angel?" she asked in a hushed tone. Kate smiled and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, it's there to watch over us." George, who usually tried to act older than his age, couldn't help but stare at the intricate designs on the ceiling. How did they make it so high? He wondered aloud. William chuckled softly and explained that people long ago worked very hard to build such amazing places. They wanted to create something that would last forever, he added, hoping his son would understand the importance of effort and dedication. Louis, meanwhile, was fascinated by the candles flickering along the aisles. He reached out to touch one, but Kate quickly stopped him with a gentle laugh. "Careful, love. Those are very special," she said, holding his hand tightly. Louis pouted for a moment, but soon forgot about the candles when he spotted a choir standing near the altar. Their voices rose in harmony, filling the abbey with music that seemed to come straight from the heavens. Even the youngest members of the royal family couldn't help but be moved by the sound. As the family made their way to their seats, William took a moment to glance around the room. He noticed how diverse the crowd was. People of all ages, races, and backgrounds had come together to witness this historic event. It reminded him of why he had chosen to serve. No matter where someone came from or what they believed in, everyone deserved to feel included and valued. That was the kind of king he wanted to be, one who brought people together rather than divided them. Kate watched her husband closely, seeing the determination in his eyes. She knew how much pressure he felt, but she also knew how strong he was. Over the years, they had faced challenges together, supporting each other through thick and thin. Today was no different. She leaned closer to him and whispered, "You're ready for this. I believe in you." Her words gave him the confidence he needed to face whatever came next. The children, too, played their part in keeping the mood light. Despite the seriousness of the occasion, their innocence and curiosity brought a sense of warmth to the room. When Charlotte accidentally dropped her small bouquet of flowers, several guests chuckled softly as she bent down to pick it up. George squirmed in his seat, trying to get comfortable, while Louis kept asking questions about everything he saw. "Why is the chair so big?" he whispered loudly, earning a quiet laugh from those nearby. As the minutes ticked by, the anticipation grew stronger. Outside, the bells continued to ring, their sound drifting through the open doors and mingling with the choir's music. The air was thick with emotion, hope, excitement, and even a little sadness for what was being left behind. But above all, there was a sense of unity. Everyone in the abbey, whether they wore crowns or simple clothes, shared a common purpose: to celebrate the beginning of a new era. Finally, it was time for the ceremony to begin. A hush fell over the crowd as the archbishop stepped forward, his robes flowing gracefully behind him. He greeted the royal family with a warm smile, then turned to address the congregation. His voice was calm and steady, carrying a message of faith, duty, and service. William listened intently, letting the words sink in. He knew that becoming king wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, sacrifices, and moments of doubt. But as he looked around the room, at his family, his friends, and the countless strangers who had come to support him, he realized he wasn't alone. He had an entire nation standing behind him, ready to help him succeed. Kate squeezed his hand one last time before the ceremony officially began. Her touch was light, but it carried so much meaning. It was a reminder that no matter what happened, they would face it together, as a family, as partners, and as leaders. And so, with hearts full of hope and gratitude, the royal family prepared to take the first step into their new journey. The coronation was more than just a ceremony. It was a promise to uphold tradition while embracing change, to honor the past while building a brighter future. As the music swelled and the candles burned brightly, everyone in the abbey felt a deep sense of connection, a bond that transcended time and united them all. As the choir's music filled the abbey, there was a brief moment of calm before the ceremony officially began. The royal family sat quietly in their seats, surrounded by the grandeur of Westminster Abbey. Outside, the bells continued to ring, their sound echoing through the ancient halls. Inside, however, everything felt still, like the world had paused for just a moment to let everyone catch their breath. Prince William leaned back slightly in his chair, his hands resting on his knees. He tried to focus on the beauty around him, the glowing candles, the intricate carvings on the walls, the soft hum of voices praying in hushed tones, but his mind kept wandering. This was the moment he had been preparing for his entire life, yet nothing could have truly prepared him for how it would feel. He thought about all the people outside, thousands of them, standing shoulder to shoulder, waiting patiently to see what came next. They weren't just watching a ceremony. They were placing their trust in him. That realization weighed heavily on his heart, but it also gave him strength. He reminded himself that being king wasn't about having power. It was about serving others. It was about listening, caring, and working hard to make things better for everyone. Beside him, Kate noticed the thoughtful look on his face. She reached over and placed her hand on his, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You're not alone," she whispered softly, almost too quiet for anyone else to hear. Her words carried so much meaning. They weren't just a reminder of her support. They were a promise that she would always be there, no matter what challenges lay ahead. William turned to her and smiled faintly. Her presence calmed him in a way nothing else could. Over the years, they had faced so many ups and downs together, but they had always come out stronger. Today it was no different. With Kate by his side, he felt like he could handle anything. In the row behind them, the children sat quietly, trying their best to stay still. Prince George fidgeted with the edge of his jacket, pulling at the sleeve when he thought no one was looking. Princess Charlotte held her small bouquet of flowers tightly, occasionally sniffing the petals to enjoy their sweet scent. Prince Louis, ever the curious one, kept glancing around the room, pointing at things that caught his eye. "Why is that man wearing a big hat?" he whispered loudly, causing a few nearby guests to stifle their laughter. Kate turned around briefly to shush him, but her smile betrayed her amusement. Even in such a serious setting, the children brought a sense of lightness and joy. Their innocence reminded everyone that, despite the weight of tradition and responsibility, this was still a family embarking on a new adventure together. As the moments passed, William took the opportunity to reflect on his journey so far. He thought about his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had ruled for so many years with grace and wisdom. She had taught him so much about duty and resilience, and he hoped to carry those lessons into his own reign. He also thought about his mother, Princess Diana, whose absence still left a quiet ache in his heart. Though she wasn't physically present, he could feel her spirit guiding him, encouraging him to lead with kindness and compassion. The stained glass windows above cast colorful patterns on the floor, shifting as the sunlight changed outside. William watched the colors dance and thought about how life itself was like that, always changing, always moving forward. Some changes were hard, even painful, but others brought hope and renewal. Today marked the start of something new, not just for him, but for the entire country. He vowed to honor the past while embracing the future, finding ways to make the monarchy relevant in a rapidly changing world. Kate, too, had her own thoughts. She looked around the abbey, marveling at how far she had come. When she first met William, she never imagined that one day she would be sitting here, preparing to become queen. It was a role she didn't take lightly. She knew that being part of the royal family meant more than wearing beautiful dresses or attending glamorous events. It meant working hard to help others, using her position to make a difference. And she was ready for it. She glanced at her children, who were now whispering quietly to each other. George was telling Charlotte and Louis about the history of the Abbey, sharing bits of information he had learned during their preparations for the day. Despite his young age, he already understood the importance of tradition and knowledge. Kate felt a surge of pride as she watched him. These children were the future, not just of the monarchy, but of the country. They represented hope, potential, and the promise of brighter days ahead. For a brief moment, the abbey fell completely silent. Even the choir stopped singing, allowing the stillness to settle over everyone. In that quiet, William closed his eyes and said a silent prayer. He asked for guidance, strength, and the ability to lead with love and fairness. He thought about the challenges ahead: climate change, social inequality, global conflicts, and promised himself that he would do everything in his power to address them. He wanted to leave behind a legacy of progress and unity, one that his children and grandchildren could be proud of. When the silence broke and the music resumed, William opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He felt ready, or at least as ready as he could be. The ceremony was about to begin, and soon he would officially become king. But for now, he allowed himself to savor this quiet moment, surrounded by his family and the countless people who believed in him. Outside, the crowd grew restless, eager to see what would happen next. Inside, the royal family shared a private glance, silently reassuring each other that they were in this together. Whatever came their way, they would face it as a team, with courage, love, and determination. And so, with hearts full of hope and minds focused on the future, they prepared to step into the next chapter of their lives. The coronation wasn't just a ceremony, it was a promise to honor the past, embrace the present, and work tirelessly to build a brighter tomorrow. The ceremony inside Westminster Abbey was filled with beauty and meaning. The Archbishop spoke with a calm and steady voice, sharing words about faith, duty, and service. His message was clear. Being a leader wasn't just about wearing a crown. It was about caring for others, working hard, and making life better for everyone. As Prince William knelt before the altar, he felt a deep sense of responsibility settle over him. This was the moment he officially became king, but it wasn't just about him. It was about his family, his people, and the future they would build together. When the archbishop placed the crown on William's head, the entire abbey erupted in applause. The sound was thunderous, echoing off the ancient walls and filling the space with energy. Outside, the crowd cheered loudly, their voices rising above the bells that now rang nonstop. For many, this was more than just a ceremony. It was a symbol of hope, unity, and renewal. People hugged each other, waved flags, and cried tears of joy. It was a moment that brought everyone together, no matter where they came from or what they believed in. Inside the abbey, Kate watched her husband with pride shining in her eyes. She knew how much effort he had put into preparing for this day, and she couldn't be prouder of the man he had become. Beside her, the children stood quietly, their small hands clasped together. Prince George looked up at his father with admiration, realizing that this was the start of something big, not just for their family, but for the whole country. Princess Charlotte held onto her bouquet tightly, her eyes wide with wonder. Prince Louis, ever the curious one, tugged on his mother's sleeve and whispered, "Is Papa really the king now?" Kate smiled down at him and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, he is." Louis grinned brightly, clearly impressed by the idea. Even though the children didn't fully understand everything that was happening, they could feel the importance of the moment. It was something they would remember for the rest of their lives. As the ceremony came to an end, the royal family stepped outside onto the steps of Westminster Abbey. The sun was shining brightly now, casting golden light over the scene. Thousands of people lined the streets, cheering and waving flags. Some held up signs with messages like, "Long live the king," and "Welcome to your new journey." The noise was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. It was a celebration, a shared moment of happiness and optimism. William stood at the top of the steps, looking out at the sea of faces below. He felt a lump rise in his throat as he realized just how many people had come to support him. They weren't just cheering for him. They were cheering for the promise of a brighter future. He raised his hand to wave, and the crowd responded with even louder cheers. Beside him, Kate held the children close, smiling warmly at the people around them. For a few moments, the family simply stood there, taking it all in. The weight of the day, the long hours of preparation, the emotions, the ceremony itself, was finally starting to sink in. But instead of feeling tired, they felt energized. This was only the beginning of their journey, and they were ready to face whatever came next. Later that afternoon, the royal family made their way to Buckingham Palace. The streets were still packed with people, and the atmosphere remained electric. When they'd arrived, they stepped out onto the famous balcony, waving to the massive crowd gathered below. The children peeked out shyly at first, but soon they were waving enthusiastically alongside their parents. Prince Louis giggled as he tried to imitate his father's confident wave, earning laughter and applause from the crowd. As the family stood together, the narrator reflected on what this day truly meant. It wasn't just about crowns, ceremonies, or traditions. It was about connection. The royal family wasn't separate from the people. They were part of them. They represented hope, resilience, and the belief that even in difficult times, there was always a reason to keep moving forward. The sun began to set behind the palace, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. It was a fitting end to a perfect day, one that marked the close of one chapter and the start of another. As the royal family turned to go back inside, they did so with hearts full of gratitude and determination. They knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they also knew they had each other and the love and support of an entire nation to help them through. And so, with the echoes of cheers still ringing in their ears, the royal family stepped into their new roles. The coronation wasn't just a celebration of the past. It was a promise for the future. A promise to lead with kindness, work tirelessly for the good of the people, and never forget the values that truly mattered: family, unity, and hope.